Mr. Bloxham here, we're just going to show some year 10s how to make apple pie and French apple tart. So we've got, first thing we're going to do is do the actual apple. We're going to stew one and we're going to do it. So I've got some sugar in here, about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of water. You normally need 1 tablespoon per apple. So this is a cooking apple and this is an eating apple. As you can see, the cooking apple's a lot larger. We've got 2 peelers here. So I'm going to put my peelings straight in here, then put them straight in the bin, or you could get like a rubbish bowl out of the cupboard, put it in the rubbish bowl first, and just put it straight in the bin. I'm going to just put it straight in the bin today, because I think that'll be okay. So we've got this peeler. Now this peeler's okay, but I find these are good for kiwis, but I reckon apples are quicker with this type, but you've got a choice. So if you're not good with one, this I find I'm quicker with this one for sure. So let's just show you some different sort of peelers, right? So you can do it, if there's any bad bits, these are out of my garden, so don't worry about if there's any bad bits, just cut them out at the end. And actually these are better, these ones were picked off the tree. Sometimes they fall off the tree. As they fall off the tree, they get bruised, and when they get bruised, they get bruised where they fall off the tree and they start to go mouldy there. So then we cut it in half, cut it into quarters, right? You can use the corer, but the corer gets stuck. Then, at 45-degree angle, we take the core out. Now what you lot can do is you can have, we've got enough for 1.5 each at least, so some of you can do 2 because 1 might not be enough, 2 would be too. Oh, actually we're not going to put it in the bin, I've just thought of that. We're all going to put them in this one because we're going to take it to the compost and we're going to put it into here, so you can put all your peelings there and we don't waste it. So then all we do is burst it up. If there's loads of bits on it and it's not very good, you can wash it first, but you shouldn't need to if you've milled it, but if there's loads of bits on it you can do that. So this goes into the pot. Now when we measure water, I've got some sugar here. I need a little bowl because I'm going to put some water in a bowl so it's easier to measure it, right? So in here we've got a tablespoon. I'm going to put in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of water. 2 tablespoons should be enough. So I'm actually going to only put 2 in, but be careful it doesn't boil dry, especially on the gas cookers, especially if you don't put a lid on because it evaporates and burns. So don't burn these, it's a nightmare if they burn, it's really hard to wash up. Now I've got some pears here, they'll be exactly the same. So I can make the pastry actually, then I'm going to peel the apple because this apple's going to be for something else. So I'm going to peel that one in a minute. So I need some water for this as well, so I've got some water here. This is going to be a light short crust pastry, but it's sweet pastry because there's some icing sugar in here. So I'm going to rub it together. And it's called short crust because the fat goes round the flour molecules and it stops them from stretching, so that's why it's called short crust pastry. This is like sweet pastry. Quite often they put egg in this, but we're just going to put water in it. But quite often this would have an egg. This is 150 grams of flour in here and 75 grams of margarine or butter, which is half fat to flour. So if that come up in your exam, it says how much fat in pastry to flour, it would be a ratio of 2 flour to 1 butter, or half fat to flour, or double flour to fat, roughly. So you could make it healthier by reducing it, but that's the well-known recipe. This would be exactly the same as crumble. So if I put some sugar in here, this would be apple crumble actually. So actually, I might do that actually. I'm going to take a tiny bit out. Yeah. So I'm going to take a bit out in a little bowl to show you, because I'm going to make something slightly different here. You don't have to do this. So I'm just going to put a bit in the measuring jug. When this starts boiling rapidly, I can turn it down to simmer. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit in there, just enough to put like a tiny bit of crumble, just to show you that later. So in here, this would normally have 3 tablespoons of water, but where I've taken a little bit out, you'll need 2.5. I'm only going to put 2 in mine. 1, 2. Then with one hand, I can smell this cooking here. Mix it up with one hand. If it doesn't mix up, you might need a little bit more water. Make sure you do full tablespoons, because if you don't, they'll be dry and you'll struggle to roll it out. If you put too much water in it, it'll be soggy, stick to the table, and it'll be a bit chewy when you make the pastry. So as you can see, all in one ball. Now this is the secret here. I'm going to make 3 of these, and 2 of them are going to have a lid. So I need 5 altogether. So you think I'm going to cut it into 5, but I'm not. I'm only going to cut it into 4 because I'm going to use the scraps to do the last lid. And normally this does a little bit more, so 4 actually. So if I'm doing 4, cut it in half, cut it in half again, cut it in half again. Now I've got less than you because I've lost a little bit by doing that. Then we get a flour shaker on the table. Now I haven't got much room on here, so I'm going to give myself a bit more room. I'm just going to put that there for a minute, because otherwise I'm going to struggle to roll it out. Now it's a lot easier to cut it up first rather than roll the whole thing out. That's a mistake if you do that, by the way. So then with the rolling pin, push it down with your thin hand. We need it roughly round, so we need to try and keep it round. Yeah. So roll it, spin it. If it starts sticking, need a little bit of flour over the top. That's 1. Now, rather than lift them all up, I'm going to roll all 4 out first before I lift them up. That's going to be slightly quicker as well, rather than lift them up. And as long as you've got room on your table, that is. Yep. 3. Oh, that's sticking on the table a bit. Now, the main reason, especially when you roll out big bits, it starts. If it doesn't move, that means it's stuck to the table or there's no flour underneath. Even though there's more flour underneath, pupils always say to me that. I say it needs more flour underneath, and pupils always say, I've got flour underneath, but it's all being absorbed by the pastry. So if it doesn't roll out, that's what probably the reason is. So as you can see, now we need it bigger than this because it needs to be up the side. So it needs to be about 1 centimetre or 1.5 centimetres bigger that way and that way. So these should be okay. Then we're going to grease them because they come out easier. So in theory you shouldn't need to grease them, but they come out easier, and these are real pain to wash up. So now I've only got 3 and you've got 3, but I reckon I'm going to make enough for 4 here. If I've got enough, I'll make a 4th one. Lift it up, tuck it in, and I'll borrow one of yours, and I'll get somebody. I'll get you a new one out. Push it in. Now leave it overhanging. That's the other secret. Only one of them we're not going to leave overhanging, which I'm going to explain in a minute. So we leave it overhanging for the pie, the pastry to fill on top. Okay, a few questions here. Oh, these are brownie apples, by the way. They go brown because of exemic browning. A few differences between eating apples and cooking apples. The eating apples are sweeter, so the cooking apples are sour. So hopefully I'll put this on. This is bubbling, but it hasn't gone soft yet. So I've done those 3. So I'm going to do the lattice while I'm waiting here. So this one here, make sure there's a tiny bit of flour underneath and a tiny bit of flour on top. Spread it around. Now you have to push quite hard into the table with this, and this is great here, so it makes it look real flash with little effort. So we mush it down. Right, and you see that it's stuck a little bit even though I floured the top. Then we can lift it up, and as you can see, we get this lovely lattice effect. So that's it there. Now, that should be done by now. So what I'm going to do, while that's going, I'm going to do this apple. The reason I didn't do the apple, because I didn't want it to go brown, but the apple's not quite cooked, but it will be. By the time I slice this up, it will be, because this is going to be for French apple tart. So I'm going to wash my hands again, mainly to wash all the pastry off. So this is going to be very thinly sliced apple on top of apple puree. Yeah? So dry your hands on the paper towel. Straight in the bin. Now I could have filled this earlier because it probably wouldn't have gone brown easily, but if you're going to be slow doing it, it might go brown. So, and we're going to slice this really thin. Some people cook this by mistake. So this one's going to be raw, and this is an eating apple. But you can use eating apples for the stewing, even though cooking apples are more well known. You could even use a cooking apple for this bit, but I'm just showing you can use any apples, and these are all out my garden, all different types. There's some green eating apples, more like Granny Smith's. I don't know what version these ones are, these red ones. I'm not sure what they are, but I'll show you the 2 different types. So as you can see, this is I don't know if that's a small cooking apple. This is definitely an eating apple, but I did pick some. But I think, oh, this is definitely like the eating apple from my garden, which is more like a Granny Smith. I'm not 100% sure it is, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So then, with the knife, cut it into quarters still. Obviously, cut any brown bits out if there's any brown bits, yeah? Cut the core out. Any peel off. You could actually leave the peel, or you can eat the peel, but we normally cut the peel out. Then, Move that to one side so we don't get it in the food. Normally I'd have the rule of don't chop it up whilst rubbish is on the job board. Slice out as thin as you can. We're going to make a nice pattern with this today. If you ever go to France, you'll see these in the shop windows all the time. They're called French apple tarts, a very famous sweet in France, especially when the apples are out. Then this apple should be done by now. Oh, which it is, it's all gone mushy. Don't know if you can see that. It doesn't have to go too mushy, but it normally goes mushy. Turn the cooker off. Don't burn it. As you can see, there's no water left. If you've got lots of water in, you end up with loads of water and you have to tip it away and waste it. Or make out. So this is like apple sauce that you have with roast pork. I've got some sugar in here already. So this is going to be 2. See, I reckon you'll need 1.5 actually. Apples. 2 will be too many. But you can do a pear at all stages. So you can either do 2 apples or 1 pear and 1 apple, right? So I've got some pears here. So you've got pear. Hello, miss. I've done the register. I just need to put Jackie in there because he was only just late. I'll change him to late. So thank you, miss. So I've just put food. Oh, it's got P11 on there. Put food on there. Thank you, miss.
That's fine. Thank you.
Brilliant, miss. Thank you. Cheers. So where do we get to? So then we're going to put the lattice on. So then what we're going to do, I've got some water here. We're going to get a pastry brush, if I can find one. Oh, I don't know if Miss has got them out. Okay, if we haven't got a pastry brush, we're just going to wet it with our fingers. Yeah, and we're going to put the lattice on. So this is going to, I'm going to do 1 lattice, like that, and then push it down. Yeah, and obviously the bigger the apple, this is 1 apple between 3. I reckon I need a bit more. If the apple's a bit bigger, then maybe not. Now this one is going to have the crumble mix on, which I've got some crumble mix somewhere, wherever I put it. Oh, I put it in the jug, didn't I? So I'm going to put a little bit of sugar in this one. In there, and that's like an apple crumble pie. But now I can push this one down. You don't have to do the crumble bit, but you can do if you want to, it's up to you. And you can do the pear if you want. Now this one here is going to have the sliced apple on. So we just decorate it all the way around, but you have to overlap it. Now obviously where it's round you need it more overlapped in the middle, otherwise it's not going to go all the way around. So quite overlap it quite a lot, especially where I haven't got much apple in this one, so then I'm going to get some more apple. Yeah? What I could have done was actually peeled this apple, because I'm going to have some of this left. I could have peeled it, saved about half of it, and then that would have been enough of that. That might have been a good tactic actually, depending on how big your apples are. So nice amount of this. This will burn in the oven. Now this one you can push off. Yeah, and then I'm going to put some sugar on top. Let me go through a couple of questions. So they go in the oven. So I've got 3 different types here. French apple tart, that's a crumble pie, and this one here. So this one, if we get some pastry brushes, that'll be better. Then we're going to sprinkle a little bit of sugar on top. And a little bit more sugar, tiny bit of sugar on this one. And the sugar keeps it from burning the apple, you'll see. And all we're going to do is turn them out and then serve them with like fresh cream, custard or ice cream if you're doing that for your exam. I've turned my oven on, straight in the oven, about 200. Okay, thank you. So let me just turn off that for a minute.